Stormborn by Black K. Cat. Chapter 12, First Movement. Lost Sun Dissonance. Dissonance. Harsh, discordant, characterized by a lack of harmony. Also a chord that sounds incomplete until it resolves itself on a harmonious chord. Kakashi hasn't changed much, at least that Naruto can see. He's still laid back and lazily attentive, his visible eyes sharp behind his heavy-lidded look of aloofness. Sakumo was never like that, at least the handful of times Naruto met him as Arashi. The elder Hatake was driven and fierce and focused, and moreover, he never tried to hide it. His son does, though. He hides and buries and conceals, until Naruto has to wonder if even Kakashi himself knows what's a mask and what isn't. He regrets it that he had to bring Sakumo into things because he's read the records, learned what happened, and how it clearly affected Kakashi. But out of all the people in Konoha, Kakashi has the greatest likelihood of divining just who Yoko is. Just who Arashi is, even. For all of Kakashi's playing at being a good-for-nothing pervert. And again, how much of that is a mask is debatable. Naruto wants to say all of it, but he's honestly a little terrifying. Sakumo has nothing on his son when Kakashi actually gets serious. And he's suspicious of everyone, of every little misstep, or even the steps taken correctly, always expecting betrayal or foul play from anyone he doesn't call a friend. Naruto can't take that risk, not now, not here, not with Sasuke. Naruto cuts off that thought, glances at his friend, and truly, his friend, and he can be sure of that now. He vanished 7 years ago, and I've been looking for him ever since. Sasuke had been looking for him, trying to find him, to the point where he would risk offending an envoy from a foreign power to get his answers. Because Naruto saw that moment of violence barely restrained when he first refused to answer. Just a half second of tension, a spark of fury, but it was there. But Sasuke cares, and it makes something in Naruto's chest flip and whirl in light, breathless loops. When he had left, he thought they wouldn't miss him. Not that he was so caught up in remorse or self-pity that he thought they wouldn't notice, but he'd expected it to be less in their eyes than other things, like rebuilding or appointing their new Kage, or, well, most things. Iruka was precious, but always busy. The Saindame was dead. Kakashi was amiable but distant. Sakura had never really seemed to care as much as he wished otherwise, and Sasuke, well, Sasuke was Sasuke, and all the Twilight meetings and missions and monsters faced down together weren't enough to put a dent in his armor. But apparently, Naruto leaving was. And it just figures, doesn't it? To get closer to his teammate, all he had to do was remove himself to the far side of the continent with no intention of returning. It takes effort not to call out a greeting to Teiuchi when they duck into the stand. Effort not to grin at Ayame standing behind the counter with a smile. But the mere thought of what Haku would likely do to him if he let his disguise slip so easily has him holding back a faint wince and keeping his smile to a normal level as he nods to the father and daughter. Afternoon, Teiuchi greets cheerfully. What will you have? Ichiraku is so automatic that it's dangerous. Naruto closes his lips on the order of pork ramen that wants to come out, not because he thinks it will tell them exactly who he is. It's not like Naruto was the only one to ever order pork, but because little clues often lead up to big revelations, and he can't afford to give anything away, not at this stage in the game. Miso, please. Kakashi orders brightly, though Naruto can still feel his occasional glance like sandpaper against his composure. The usual, Sasuke puts in with a nod, glances over at Naruto. Naruto bites back the nervous flutter in his stomach, fights it down until he doesn't have to think about Sasuke's sharp, dark eyes on him anymore, and makes a show of looking over the menu. Show you ramen for me, thanks. He smiles at Teiuchi from beneath his mask and can't help but regret the subterfuge that he and Haku have immersed themselves in. What would it be like to come back as himself? What would Sasuke have said, done, if it had been Naruto at the gate instead of Yoko? Tsunade, Kakashi, Ino, Neji, any and all of them, what would they have said? Because the Naruto returning isn't the same Naruto that left. remembering his time as Arashi, fully Uzushio, and being a Kage. His understanding with Kurama, his new friends, his people, they've all changed him, and he likes to think it's for the better. The feeling of eyes, or an eye, as it were, on him draws him out of his thoughts, and he blinks at the sight of Kakashi staring at him. Yes? He asks politely, inwardly rolling his own eyes. Kakashi is very good at playing it not subtle, for all that he's actually an underhanded jerk. Kakashi smiles at him, bright and cheerful, and probably without an ounce of honesty behind it, and says, "If you knew my father, you must have known the Sennin as well, and the Yondame." Naruto met Sarutobi's students, twice when they were genin, and then at various other times when they were older, and he laughs a little to himself, remembering the first time. 3 wide-eyed children, Orochimaru solemn, and Tsunade enthusiastic, and Jiraiya boisterous, standing in their teacher's shadow as the two Kages conversed. Naruto had never quite had time for a genin team of his own, back when he was Arashi, and that's another regret to be laid at the feet of the time's unfaltering tension. Too much war, too many battles and petty quarrels, and not enough peace, never enough peace. But maybe now, with Uzushio returned and finally a power to rival any two of the great nations, or more, perhaps now peace can have a chance. I met the Sennin, he allows, looking back up to meet Kakashi's gaze. Not Namikaze, though. He was a child when Uzushio fell the first time, probably still an academy student if I'm remembering his age correctly, and after that there was simply never a chance before he died. Entirely true, with the added bonus of being entirely misleading. Naruto never did get the chance to meet his father, not until he and Kurama called up enough power between them to activate the failsafe in the seal. But that's bittersweet, and not something Naruto likes to dwell on. So he pushes that aside as well, and gives Kakashi a smile. Ah, that reminds me. Do you have a memorial for all those killed in action? There are a few old friends I need to say hello to. Kakashi studies him for a long moment, and there's a weight to that gaze. Something heavy and cool and hard, like steel. He says nothing, though, and it's Sasuke who nods. I can show you after we eat, the brunette offers, casting a sharp glance at their former teacher before he turns his attention back to the bowl being set in front of him. With a grunt of thanks, he picks up his chopsticks and digs in. Here you are, Ayame says brightly, placing another bowl in front of Naruto with a smile. Enjoy! Thank you, Naruto murmurs back, but with the thought of the memorial heavy on his chest, it's hard to work up his usual enthusiasm. Maybe that's a good thing, though, seeing as Kakashi is still watching him, sideways and on the sly, maybe, but Naruto has been a ninja for almost twice as long as the Kappinen all told, and it's nowhere near as sneaky as he seems to think it is. Naruto casts him a look, brow arching slightly, and turns back to his meal. Eating through the mask is tricky, but not impossible, and he's already fairly distracted by what he needs to do. He has a promise to Kagami to fulfill, after all. They're marrying me off, Kagami says flatly, leaning against the waist-high wall that runs around the top of the watchtower. Seated beside him, legs dangling over the drop and eyes fixed on the ocean before them, Naruto lets out a soft breath of unsurprised resignation. Can you honestly say you weren't expecting it? He asks gently, but he doesn't look away from where the sky disappears into the sea. Given your bloodline, Kagami scoffs, mouth pulled into a tight, unhappy line. He's not normally one for brooding, bright and happy and enthusiastic to a fault, but when he does, it's easier than ever to see the family resemblance that's usually so well hidden. My bloodline, he huffs, jerking away from the wall to stalk across the roof. It's too small for much, just a few strides across in each direction, but he makes use of it to pace as best he can, throwing his hands up for good measure. Naruto doesn't look. He's seen this show before, whenever Kagami's father was being especially unbearable. My bloodline? You mean what those old, wrinkled idiots can't understand, will never understand? It's not like there's more than an infinitesimal chance of me passing it on, even if I do what they want and reproduce for the good of the clan. He makes a sound of disgust and throws himself back against the wall, sliding down to sit on the roof with his arms crossed, looking for all the world, like a pouting child. Naruto wants to be sympathetic and outraged on behalf of his friend, but he's also a Kage, and he knows very well how politics tend to play out. And the Uchiha clan is nothing if not a breeding ground for political plays and power grabs. They're not so much a family as a self-contained soap opera, honestly. And even if he tried to help, he's the head of a foreign power, no matter how friendly with Konoha. For all his ability to broker trade agreements and peace treaties, he's powerless in the face of his best friend's personal life. And great! But he and Kagami have walked this path before, attempting to get the Uchiha out from under his father's thumb, and Naruto knows exactly how it plays out. With a heavy groan, Kagami drags his palms over his face and then blows out a breath, scuffing his fingers through his straight chin-length hair. He's stockier than the average Uchiha, more given to a gymnast's muscles than a dancer's build, and shorter than normal, though he's still a good 3 inches taller than Naruto, another thing to set him apart beyond his heritage, which is unique even among the other variations of the Sharingan. I don't even know her, he complains, and Naruto smiles sadly. Kagami is a romantic at heart, no matter how many times his father tried to make him otherwise, or to get him to face a shinobi's reality. He's a fan of forbidden romances, and love at first sight, fated loves, and despite the odds, and happy endings. And she's not Asami, he finishes, because it needs to be said, even if Kagami isn't willing to do it. Kagami closes his eyes, leaning his head back against the sun-warmed stone with a sigh. No, he agrees. She's not Asami. Kagami, Naruto starts, but his friend cuts him off with a shake of his head. Stop it, Arashi, he huffs. I know. Whenever you're about to say, I probably said it to myself at least 20 times, okay? I know our families are enemies. I know we don't have a chance, but she's not an Uchiha, Naruto murmurs, keeping his tone light. He's divorced from the whole situation, living in Uzushio as he does, and only knows what he hears from Kagami between the diplomats' trips back to Konoha. But Kagami's only ever had good things to say about Azami. Even before they got stuck together on a C-rank mission and he came back with hearts in his eyes and a mantra of, I'm in love, with which to drive Naruto to distraction. It sounds like something off a stage, feuding families with their children in love, but the reality of it isn't quite so theatrical. There's a lot of pining, honestly, and carefully measured conversations in public places, longing glances, and stern talking tos from the clan elders. Naruto sympathizes. He honestly does. But unless Kagami and Izami elope and seek sanctuary in Uzushio, there's not much he can do. And even then, he can't afford to start a war, to involve his people in a clash between two former allies over his childhood friend. Being Uzukage means he can't take risks, not with his people's lives. Yeah, Kagami agrees with a sigh, then shakes his head and looks away, out over the red roofs that march in grand array up the feet of the surrounding hills. Hizai is gentle, from what I've heard. Kind. A Jonin, and she has the Sharingan. But I want someone who can match me, Arashi, not a meek and gentle wife. Did you know that Azami can't cook? Last time she tried to make me dinner, she set my apartment on fire. I didn't think that kind of thing happened outside of cheesy shoujo manga. And she yells at me and smacks me in the head when I'm being stupid, and He spreads his hands helplessly. She's the only thing I've ever really wanted for myself, Arashi. How can anyone compete with that? How can I give that up? Naruto doesn't have an answer, but he curls a hand around Kagami's shoulder and grips it tightly, a poor attempt at comfort. Kagami lets out a long, slow breath and reaches up to lay his hand over Naruto's, fingers closing desperately over the Uzukage's. I won't, he whispers loud in the stillness between them. I won't give it up. And Naruto closes his eyes and turns his face away, out toward the calm azure sea to where he can feel clouds gathering just over the horizon. He can't imagine this will end in anything but tragedy. Kagami's name is right where Naruto remembers it, slightly faded by time and weather but still readable. He crouches in front of the stone, reaching out to trace his fingers over the carved lines. There's another Uchiha Kagami here, written as Mirror, but his Kagami's name uses different kanji and is easy to tell apart. Sasuke is 3 paces behind him, silent and still, and Naruto wonders if he's speaking to his own fallen friends and family, if anyone on this stone is familiar to him. There are too many names that Naruto knows, far too many for his comfort, and Sarutobi Hiruzen is just the latest in a string of them. Senju Azami's name is several above Kagami's, stark and bold. Thistle flower, it means, and from what Kagami told him, it suited her personality. He remembers Kagami's grief when she died, remembers the haunted look on his face for months afterwards, right up until he left Uzushio and never returned. There was a child, Naruto knows. A son. Kagami named him Godfather and inundated him with pictures until the mere threat of photos made Uzushio's fearless storm god cringe. Azami's son, not Hisai's. And Naruto has to wonder what kind of life the child lived, growing up the child of two families traditionally at odds with one another, because Azami had died barely a month after the birth, carried away on a diplomatic mission that needed to be handled by one of the last living members of her clan, only to have it go south halfway through. And Kagami, with his own duty to fulfill, had only been able to see the boy a handful of times. Naruto recognizes the boy's name, carved into the memorial, another loss for Kagami's family, another point of tragedy in Naruto's own life. Not that he really expected differently given the circumstances surrounding the Uchiha clan, and especially not given the boy's own circumstances. A child born outside of an arranged marriage, to a mother considered an enemy of the clan, but left with the betrayed wife to be raised like a full-blooded Uchiha. Naruto can't imagine what the boy suffered. He loved Kagami. Loves him still. But some of his choices left much to be desired. Not that it matters much anymore, Naruto supposes. Uchiha Itachi took care of that, even if the boy had survived childhood, become an upstanding member of his clan. And perhaps it happened. Perhaps Hisai truly was kind enough to raise a child not her own until her death. He more than likely was killed in the massacre. Only Sasuke himself escaped the slaughter that night, after all. "And Uchiha?" Sasuke asked, as if spurred by the thought. Naruto nods slowly, rising to his feet and settling the lilies he bought before the stone. "The very best Uchiha," he says, allowing himself a faint smile. Kagami made poor decisions, yes, but Naruto knows as well as anyone that the Uchiha are quite literally mad for love. All the emotional suppression in the world, which Kagami, of course, never believed in, can only take them so far from their curse, given how tightly it's tied up with their bloodline. And Kagami was always cheerful, always willing to help in any way he was needed. Headstrong and brave and oddly insightful, a good friend and a terrible foe. As Arashi, Naruto met his fair share of Uchiha, but he'll always think of Kagami as the very best of them. Even factoring in geniuses like Itachi and the first Kagami, the Nidaime Hokage's aide. He steps back with a soft sigh, remembering Kagami's grin, his wisdom, his steadfast friendship through years and battles and natural disasters, deaths and births, and the threat of war. And somehow, Suno forces managed to get so very far behind Konoha's lines, managed to lie in wait for a single messenger moving fast and secretively, and killed him despite his bloodline, despite the power and uniqueness of his Sharingan. Despite the fact that in a fight, no one ever touched Kagami. Somehow, Kagami was killed when he shouldn't have even been in danger. Killed by a squad of shinobi almost an entire country away from where they should have been. And Naruto doesn't think it's paranoia to lay this at Danzo's door as well. Because Uzushio had held out for the required 15 days and then more besides. Arashi sure that Kagami had simply been held up by politics. And it was only afterwards, 25 days into a siege Uzushio wasn't prepared for, that he realized something must have happened. That Kagami had failed and Konoha wasn't coming. That Uzushio was on its own against the might of a village twice its size and well-equipped to fight a war. Well-equipped to fight a war against Uzushio in particular, with knowledge of the city's forces that no one but an Uzushio shinobi should have had, and a high-ranking shinobi at that. Or a well-placed one, as Reishi was, being the beloved nephew of the Uzukage's trusted assistant. "Why?" Naruto asks silently, staring at the memorial, not sure if he's directing the question at Danzo or the gods themselves. "Why would you do it? We were no threat to Konoha. We never had been. We shared everything. Secrets and seals and techniques. Why would you destroy us when we only ever offered friendship? How many people died just because of one paranoid warmonger? How many of my people? And why did no one ever notice that there was something more to all of this? Not even some. But then, Hiruzen had always been far too trusting of his own people and of Tanjiro in particular. But he won't get away with it. Not a minute longer. Naruto reaches out, brushes his fingers over Kagami's name once more, over his godson's name, and then turns away. He smiles at Sasuke, bright and cheerful, even though it feels like his heart is breaking, like the steel of his determination is the only thing carrying him forward. Sasuke looks back at him, tall and proud, and nothing like Kagami, but at the same time holding an equal vein of bull-headed devoted strength within himself. His dark eyes aren't quite sympathetic, because they're hardly friends. At least Sasuke and Yoko aren't. But there's an understanding in them, a kind of reluctant kinship only grudgingly admitted to, loss and loneliness, and families found at long last, and Naruto lets his fingers rest just briefly on Sasuke's shoulder as he steps past. "Thanks," he murmurs and turns away, back towards the inn and Haku, back to what he came here for. Back to his plotting, and back to their plans to bring Danzo down. High up, silhouetted against the clear blue of the summer sky, a white gyrafalcon gives a keening cry and folds its wings, plummeting towards its master. The message canister, bound to its leg, flashes in the sun as it descends, and Naruto turns to look, one hand raised to shield his eyes. No clouds in that sky, not yet. But he wonders why he feels they should be gathering all the same.